Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Room podcast. I am your host today. Andrew is not here, but I am here with Mark DiGiovanni. We are fresh off of the Aaron Express here on the opening of the new league year and free agency and the eve of St. Patrick's Day. Mark, how you feeling, buddy?
Man, Aaron Express, man, what a weekend, bro. The Friday house party, Aaron Express bar crawl. Heck of a weekend. I was looking forward to it for a while. Can't believe it's already over, but I'm doing well, man. Just waiting for March Madness tomorrow. Probably not going to get any work done, but I'm ready, man. I'm ready.
I'm with you. I'm working from home tomorrow. We're putting on the National Wrestling Championships in the background, and we'll see what work actually gets done. But
Yeah, so I'll watch March Madness. You got March Madness, and hey, we might get more MLB and NFL free agency buzz going around. So hey, it's a great time in the sports calendar. Great time.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. Could not agree more with you. The MLB lockout turned out to just give us even more news and information and excitement right now. But speaking of excitement, we're here to talk about the most exciting positions in football today, the kicker and punter positions. So first, before we do the position deep dive, let's talk about the overall strength of this position. And Mark, why don't you kick that off? If you want to blend them together, talk about each one separately, the overall strength of those positions.
Yeah, way to say it. Kick it off. I like how you did that there. No pun intended. I think it's a pretty strong class. I think especially on.
Wait, time out. It was no punt intended.
Hey. Andrew, when Andrew edits this, he'll be like, I bet we'll get him laughing. I bet most of our viewers out there will get laughing. I think on the kicker side, it's especially strong. I think there's some names in here who have some really strong legs. And then there are some names who I'm going to bring up in our top fives as we go into it, who have kicked in some big ball games too. I think that's like the biggest thing in the NFL you want to see from a kicker is, clutch kicking, Super Bowl, game on the line. You want that Adam Vinatieri come out, absolutely drill it right down the center. In terms of punters, I haven't really seen too much of punters. Obviously, we saw Matt Ariza. I think you and I will probably both talk about him a little bit later, but just absolutely booming balls at the combine. And yeah, punters are people too, like Pat McAfee says.
Absolutely. I agree. I think it's a good year for both the punter and kicker positions. Totally agree with your point. We've got your top punters this year coming out from SEC school and Big Ten schools. My top kicker is coming out of an SEC school, if that gives anything away. So again, like you said, been in big moments, really consistent throughout their careers with these guys, both field goals, extra points, and then punts inside the 20, things like that. So I really do like the overall strength of the position. So moving on, what is one team, and we're going to combine this together with our top five will be a combination of kicker and punter. So why don't we do a combination here? Why don't, Mark, you give the team that is in need of a kicker as well as the team that's in need of a punter?
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, we saw how big of a rookie factor a kicker could be. I mean, look at Evan McPherson, rookie year, and absolutely just ball it out. But I think there's a lot of teams who use kickers. I mean, there's the teams like the Chargers who can never seem to get the kicker position right. It seems like year in and year out, they have like 4 or 5 different kickers each year. And, for them, it's huge because you're playing in the AFC West now that you got, Russell Wilson in Denver. They got better. Vegas, they went to the playoffs last year. Kansas City, obviously, we know how good they are. And, obviously, if you're looking at the Chargers, you just missed the playoffs. You could have tied to get in, but few kicks go your way, you're looking at maybe an easy playoff berth. So I'm going to say the Chargers because they missed the playoffs, and every year it seems to be the same problem with them having no kicker. And in terms of punter, I mean, I don't even know. Probably every team in the league needs a punter. I mean, you just want to have a guy who's out there on 4th down who can just put you inside the 10. One of our favorites, Eagles legend, Cameron Johnson, was one of the best at that. Obviously not here anymore. So, I'll say the Eagles need a punter, Otto. They need a punter.
I think you're right about that. The Eagles do need a punter. Aaron Sipos sucked at the end of the year, to put it lightly, and actually probably cost us 2 of those games at the end. But to me, when I look, I'm just going to take the easy road here. A couple teams that have lost kickers and punters in the last week here with free agency and roster cuts. Dallas lost Zerline as their kicker, so I'll put Dallas in that conversation. And then big news, the Rams cutting Johnny Hekker yesterday. One of the top punters in the league. Can't wait to see where he lands. Not only a great punter and a veteran punter, but also he's a trick play waiting to happen with that arm he's got. Can't tell you how many times we've seen him throw a pass off the direct snap on a fake punt. So those would be my 2 teams that are in the market there. But let's now go into our top 5 kickers and punters. So this is, again, a combination of the top of the 2 positions as we go through these top 5. But Mark, I'll hand it over to you to go with number 5.
Yeah, number 5, I'm going to go with Gabe Bricky from Oklahoma. Very accurate kicker. He only missed 3 kicks this season. Very good leg. And yeah, he's what was it? He's hit 20 kicks over 56 yards in his career. So got a booming leg, pretty accurate kicker. And so I got him at 5. Obviously the Big 12, I put him there at 5 because the Big 12, they literally just put basketball scores. So obviously those guys can get more opportunity just because, those offenses go from 20 to 20 like it's no one's business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll keep it in the Big 12 with another kicker. And my number 5 is Andrew Mivis from Iowa State. Huge leg here, transferred in from Fordham for the 2021 season. So not a lot of tape on him, only 1 year at the Division I single A level. However, didn't miss above 50 this year. His long was from 54. They say he can hit from even farther. No misses on the extra points and only 3 misses in total with the field goals for the year. So Andrew Mivis, I think, he's a guy who's probably not going to get drafted, as most kickers don't, but big leg, probably an under the radar guy after playing his earlier years at Fordham. So yeah, Mark, number 4.
Yeah, number 4, I'm going to go with the punter here. I know I brought him up, Matt Ariza, and the reason I have him here is because he actually played both positions at San Diego State. His kicking stats, I'll be honest, are not the best, but if you just look at strictly punting, this guy is an absolute boomer of a leg. He led the nation in a ton of punting stats from hang time, kicks inside the 20, inside the 10. Just an incredible player. Then we saw him at the combine. I mean, it just looked like it looked like his leg was a rocket. Those balls were going into orbit at the combine.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have Ariza on my list. He's a little bit higher up for me, but I won't give away where. My number 4 is Caleb Shudak, the kicker from Iowa. I really like the confidence in this kid. So you already talked about, Mark, how one thing you look for in kickers and punters, guys who have played in big moments, which typically means they've played at big time schools, because that puts them in the pressure situations. I love that. I totally agree. The kicker punter position is one where the mental game is more important to me than the physical game. You see kickers start to miss and then they fall apart and their career ends. You never hear again. And it's all because of the mental game. It's not something physical. This kid walks around and just oozes confidence and swag. His dad was a famous kicker at Iowa State, and he was an Iowa State fan all growing up, pressured to go to Ohio State. And he just looked at his dad and was like, yeah, I'm going to go to Iowa, the rival, and I'm just going to blow up all your stats at Iowa State and be better than you. So I love Caleb Shudak. He was 4 from 6 beyond 50. Big leg. He only had two more misses that were inside of 50 for the year, 24 for 28 in total. And he is my number 4. Mark, your number 3?
Yeah, just a quick note. I love how you have the 2 guys from the corn state right there of Iowa. So I know Iowa, they tend to breed offensive linemen. Do they breed kickers out there too, Otto?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. They grow the corn stalks high enough to be the goalposts, and then they kick them right through.
I love it. It's awesome. I love it. But yeah, for me, I'm going to go to the ACC. I know I talked about this team a bunch when we talked about Sam Hartman, but I'm going to go with the kicker here. Nick Skiba out of Wake Forest. I mean, they had an absolute incredible run this year. And, Skiba also played in a lot of big games this year in the ACC. Obviously, it wasn't the way they wanted to end their season, but he finished his career 4 years at Wake Forest with a 90.8 career field goal percentage. Deadly accurate. And if you want a guy who's cold as nails, it's this guy. He was one of only 2 kickers to have attempted over 10 plus field goals and did not miss a field goal or an extra point attempt. This guy, cold-blooded, probably could have been higher on my list. The other 2 are really good too, so you have to stay tuned. But yeah, Nick Skiba.
That is a good one. I will not lie, had not looked at him. So I will have to check him out. My number 3 is Matt Ariza, who, Mark, you already noted. So I love the raw talent that this guy has. Again, I know that he kicked. I don't care about that. I want him as a punter, obviously. Biggest leg in the draft, period. He 51-yard average in 2021. If you go back, there's videos of him at the combine booming like a 70-yarder and then putting backspin on it, landing it inside the 5. I mean, this kid's leg is huge. Knock on him, he doesn't have the best control of that leg. 15 touchbacks, which we don't want to see, right? But the leg itself is huge. He's also a lefty, so he puts that backside spin on the ball that most people are not used to. And we've seen people struggle with that in the past. The Patriots and Bill Belichick are really big on having lefty punters because of the problems it causes return men. And then the other thing that I loved about him is the few times that he got a chance to make a hit on a returner, he hits. Like, he hits. And I love that in a punter. My favorite one all time was Sav Rocca for the Eagles. Australian guy, played rugby, and he kicked the ball and he ran down the field looking to hit people. And Ariza, he hits people too. So I love that about him. And he is my number 3. But Mark, you're number 2 kicker or punter.
Yeah, real quick note on the Australians right there. I don't know if you noticed, but there's been a big trend of college recruiters going over to Australia and recruiting punters from the Australian Rules Football League. And that's why you're seeing like a lot of this trend. Like you brought up Aaron Sipas earlier. There's a kid on Seattle, Michael Dixon. There's been a huge wave, even Cameron Johnson brought him up too, of Australian punters just coming from rugby, going to college and then coming to the NFL. And it's just been incredible to see, kind of that transition from, Matt Ariza is from San Diego, went to San Diego State, but now you're seeing that transition of coaches going overseas to go get kickers, which I think is just such an interesting thing to note. But number 2 for me is Will Riker from Alabama. Career field goal percentage of 84.8, not as good as Nick Skiba, but the reason I have Riker here is because this guy has played in big games. He's played in the Final Four, the semifinals, and the national championship, and has hit some big kicks for the Crimson Tide, and that's what you want to see, a nice, confident kid. Like we kept bringing it up, Otto. Big games, this guy, he's got that Super Bowl type of experience, if you will, as kicking in a national championship. So I got him just a little bit ahead of Skiba just because of his experience.
Yeah. I'm going to stay in the SEC with my number 2, and I'm going to tell you a little story. So 2 years ago, it's a COVID year, and LSU, Justin Jefferson's gone and Burrow's gone, and all these guys are opting out. The team kind of falls apart, and they're unranked, and they're really kind of getting crushed every week. Nobody knows what's going on with Coach O, and they walk into Florida, number 6 Florida, primetime game, fog everywhere. And with 3 seconds left on the clock, they parade out this little kicker named Cade York for a 57-yard game winner over the number 6 Florida Gators, where you can't even see the dang uprights because there's so much fog, and he knocks it through the middle. Huge leg for Cade York. You want to talk about pressure situations? I mean, can't see the uprights, number 6 Florida, 57-yard game winner. I can't say enough about the kid, the swag, the confidence, the huge leg, one of the top recruits when he came out in high school. To me, he is my top kicker in this year's draft. And you know, I think he could be Evan McPherson of this year's draft.
And funny enough, Otto, guess who my number one is? Cade York. I was literally about to make a note of that Florida game. So I remember watching that game this year. And I remember, you know, it's kind of like, you know, where is he? And then you see the ball go right through the uprights. That was incredible. But yeah, I was going to say he was my number one too. Yeah, he had 90% of his field goals this season as well. And like you said, you know, LSU kind of had some down years after the national championship. And, you know, he was one of their bright spots. You know, you can count on him if you need to kick a field goal, you know, 60 yards and in. So, yeah, definitely. I think he's going to be a huge pickup. And I agree with you. I think he could be the Evan McPherson this draft class.
Absolutely. Yeah. My number one, though, I go back to the punter position. We are Penn State. Jordan Stout played in the Senior Bowl, was at the Combine this year. Big punter at 6'3", great leg on kickoffs. And the thing to me, so we talked about Ariza, right? And he was a 51-yard average. The yard average for Jordan Stout is not as great as Ariza. It's 46 yards. However, Stout's control is phenomenal. 3 touchbacks only for the whole year, and 44.8% of his kicks were fair catches. So he's not allowing for returns. He's got a big leg, not as big as Ariza, but a big leg, and he's got total control of it. He's able to pin you inside the 20, which, as we know, that's really what we're looking for out of the punting game. So Jordan Stout, to me, is my number one kicker / punter in this year's draft.
And yeah, I was just gonna say on Jordan Stout too, like you said, his average wasn't there, like Matt Ariza. But then again, look where he's playing. He's playing in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Maryland, New Jersey. That's all cold weather states. Meanwhile, Ariza in the Mountain West, he's mostly in California, Nevada. Now I understand they got to go play, you know, Boise State out there in Idaho. It gets pretty cold. But I mean, if you just look at where Stout plays for most of the year in those cold weather states, you know, his average is going to go down a little bit, you know, with the wind, the rain, the snow. So, you know, it just all depends on where you are, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a great point. I do think that affected his average as you look through the other guys on this list and kind of where they're kicking the ball. So with that, who, Mark, is your sleeper among punters and kickers?
I was actually going to say Jordan Stout was a sleeper, but you already brought him up. If there was enough, I'll have to look at some more. I haven't really looked at any sleepers on kickers and punters, to be honest with you. But I think any of these guys really could be a sleeper, especially Will Riker. I don't think he'll get drafted that high, but I think just having that big game experience, you know, especially playing in Alabama, I think that's a huge factor. So I guess I'll say him as a sleeper.
You're sleeping on the sleepers on me. My sleeper is Jake Kamarta, the Georgia punter. So again, LSU, the big games, we love that. 46.7 yard average, a little bit more than Stout. Really, really good directional punter again. So great control of that leg, which again, I love. And he gets the ball off really, really fast. So that's a huge thing. And to speak to the control of his leg, only 6 touchbacks. So similar to Stout, who had 3, really like that in the punting game. And then the last thing on punters and kickers before we jump into some free agency talk, given that it is the start of free agency in the new league year. Mark, could you name one kicker or punter that you would like to see in Eagles green next year?
Well, I think we're going to keep it on the punter position. I think, like you said, you know, too, that Aaron Siposs has not had the best season. Like, I think he started out pretty well. I think he was hitting the ball very well. And then, like you said, towards the end of the year, I mean, balls, like, look at that playoff game against Tampa Bay. He had like 2 or 3 shanked punts in key moments of the game, which put Tom Brady and the lethal Tampa Bay offense in great position. I think it was in the third quarter, you know, we get stopped 3 and out. Fine. It's like, okay, let's just get it out of here. And he absolutely shanks it to like our own 40-yard line. Now Brady's got 40 yards. Like, he's already in field goal range. It's like, okay, great. Now we're at least giving up 3, maybe even more. So I would have to say, you know, either Jordan Stout right down the road or either Matt Ariza. I mean, we need one of those guys, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I agree. To me, I want to go Ariza here. I already noted how I love punters that hit people. And then, I think that you can teach the control of your kicks. What you can't teach is that 51-yard average and being able to just completely flip the field. And again, to your point, it's a cold weather city in Philadelphia, so having that extra leg could be helpful there. So I look at Ariza as a guy potentially for the Eagles. So as we shift into this and we focus mainly in the podcast on the draft, and we will continue to focus on the draft, but we did want to give a lot of time here tonight specifically to free agency, given that while we are recording this right now, it is 8 o'clock on the day of the league opening and free agency beginning. So just start off and we'll start off with what is the top position in free agency that you've identified, Mark, and the weakest position in free agency, and then how does that affect the draft for those two positions?
Yeah, I think a really underrated position this year in free agency, especially, is the wide receiver position. I mean, obviously the top prize is still out there now in Robinson, but some of the other guys have been like kind of under the radar, like a DJ Chark. I think is a really, really good prospect. He was a really good prospect at LSU, had some success at Jacksonville, and now he moves on to Detroit. Obviously, Jacksonville, speaking of them, they spent a ton of money on Christian Kirk. I'm sure we'll get into that. But I mean, there's just some names here. Odell Beckham's still on this list. So yeah, Julio Jones just gets added to the list today. So I think, receiver, it still keeps getting deeper and deeper as the league year continues. But I think that's been a pretty underrated position in free agency. Yeah. What do you think, Otto?
Yeah, I mean, my top position going in, and I know the receiver position, to your points, added some guys with Landry and Jones being added here the last couple days. My top position going into this was safety, Matthews, or Tyrann Mathieu, Marcus Williams, Marcus May, Justin Reed, Quandre Diggs was there initially. Just an abundance of talent at that position. Already most of them off the board, as funny as it is. But there's a lot of position a lot of talent at that position in free agency this year. It makes you wonder whether or not, the safety class for the draft, Kyle Hamilton's at the top. We don't expect him to fall outside the top 10. He shouldn't fall outside the top 5. But the other guys, Brisker, Sign, Petrie, Battle, all these guys, Daxton Hill, do they start to fall into the middle of the second round, out of the first round, because these teams are picking up these free agent safeties and filling that hole now? It'll be interesting to see. Similar to the receiver position, that's one where we've talked about this. Jameson Williams is hurt. Could he fall? Okay. Could he really fall now because other teams have picked up guys like Julio and Allen Robinson that you've noted, Mark? So those are some positions in the draft that we now need to look at a little bit differently based off of the talent that was there in free agency. Then we have the worst free agent positions coming into this. And Mark, what do you think the worst position was free agency wise this year?
Yeah, I really want to say offensive line. I know there are some guys who got picked up, but really like some of the linemen here are pretty old. I think the top prize of free agency right now is still Teron Armstead. I think he's an incredible talent. But I think some of the guys underneath him, aren't that great. I think, obviously the Bengals went out. They got Alex Kappa, which was was a solid signing for them. But yeah, I think really there wasn't too many big names. And then the other position that stood out to me, Otto, was quarterback. I mean, was Mitchell Trubisky really the top prize in free agency? Jameis Winston. But I understand like quarterbacks don't usually tend to hit free agency. I understand that they're usually traded or they're usually drafted, but still there's usually like one or two guys you'd be like, hey, we're gonna roll with him for like 2 or 3 years and we're gonna be good. But yeah, I think those two positions to me were kind of underwhelming this off season, and I think we'll see a lot of teams take offensive line and with how bad quarterback looks in free agency, I think you'll see some teams start trading up for a quarterback in the first round.
Hey, we'd love to see it as Eagles fans, whether or not they're trading up for our pick or if they're trading up and pumping talent down the board to us. Yeah, I agree with the sentiment there. I think as far as O-line goes, I thought the guard position was okay in free agency, but the tackle position definitely lacking after Armstead. QB position I had right there at the top for the worst. The other one that I identified was the running back position. I'm looking at it as the top names out there being Melvin Gordon, David Johnson, and Leonard Fournette. And if this was 5 years ago, oh my God, I'd love that. But it's not 5 years ago. These guys are over the hill. None of them can be your main back. And in free agency, pretty much everybody gets overpaid, as we know with Christian Kirk. So that is a position to me where I just think that there's no real talent there. It's a lot of guys that are probably past their prime and are more rotational pieces rather than a starter. And as far as where that affects the draft, to me, yeah, I mean, if those guys are really looking for a big contract, then you let them sit and you go get Breece Hall in the middle of the second instead of the end of the second, or Kyron Williams again, in the top of the second. The running backs in the draft aren't going to be first round running backs anyways. So if you go get them in the second, the contract for a guy in the second round is pennies on the dollar to what you may pay for one of these older guys who's been beat up in free agency. So I think that it could definitely help the running backs in the draft this year to move up a little bit farther than maybe we had them when we talked about them on our earlier show. So that's our overview, right? But we're now 4 hours and 17 minutes into the new league year and official free agency and all that. However, as we know, they don't actually wait until 4 o'clock on Wednesday. They start talking on Monday and before Monday. So we have had some deals so far, and we wanted to identify some free agency winners and losers. So Mark, what do you got for winners and losers in free agency so far?
Yeah, I think the one team I wrote down as an absolute winner has been the Los Angeles Chargers. They've literally checked every box that they need to do. One, they need to keep Mike Williams because, heck, who are they going to replace Mike Williams with? They're going to go replace him with a rookie, or are you going to go out and overpay for like an Allen Robinson? They got him back. He's a good young receiver. He's got good chemistry with Herbert. But then here's where they really made their splash was going out and trading for Khalil Mack. Huge win for them. Now they pair him up with Joey Bosa. And then to help those two guys, they had Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson on the interior line just to help those guys out. So now their line is stacked. And then what do they need? They need corner. They went out and got the top corner, J.C. Jackson, 5 years, $82.5 million. Unbelievable. Some notable free agents that are still out there. They let go Nachina Nuwasu, who signed with the Seahawks today, but still some notable free agents out there. They get one name I'm looking at is Chris Harris. I think if they can bring back Chris Harris on a good deal, now you got him and J.C. Jackson as your two corners. Holy crap! Like they did absolutely need to do. I mean, look what's going on in the AFC. Especially in their division. We got Wilson. All right, we got to chase him around. Oh, there's some other dude in Kansas City who we've been chasing around for like 4 years now. They did exactly what they needed to do. So I think the Chargers, absolute winners here.
Yeah, I agree. I had the Chargers as one of my winners. One of the obvious winners to me, and we've already addressed him like 4 times here, probably because of how outrageous his contract is. It's Christian Kirk. I mean, that guy should be getting arrested for highway robbery right now. $84 million. I mean, that was absolute stealing. But hey, if somebody's willing to give it to you, go ahead. The Jaguars would have been my winner for all the moves that they made up until that point. I really liked what they were doing, but the overpayment there was like, whoa. Now you're kind of reaching, and that's going to affect you for years with a 4-year deal there. But when I think about this, you already talked about the Chargers, who are, to me, the clear-cut winners so far. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, the AFC West's a winner, right? Best division in football, hands down right now. Russell Wilson comes in, Chandler Jones to the Raiders, Kansas City just being who they are, all the moves you address with the Chargers. But let's talk about the real winner here. Every NFC team is a winner right now because they play in the NFC, and there is no one running away with that. Aaron Rodgers can't win a playoff game. We all know that. Tom Brady's 45 years old and has forgotten to eat his avocado ice cream for the last 40 days, right? Matt Stafford, I mean, let's be honest. Do we really think he can repeat? No Odell, no Vaughn. I don't know, right? And then Jimmy Garoppolo's gone. Dallas has gotten way worse over the last couple days. Arizona loses Chandler Jones. And then you get in, and I love our Eagles, but then you get into this tier of just like, I don't know, are they good? Are they bad? Right? So it's like the whole NFC is wide open. All the best quarterbacks are in the AFC. Then all the best pass rushers followed them to go and sack those guys. The NFC is a huge winner right now. And any team that was kind of mediocre that thought they had a chance and were a couple moves away, yeah, you're a winner because it's wide open right now.
Yeah, it's insane. And I was going to say, I really liked what the Jags did. I think one of the most underrated signings they did was sign Evan Ingram. I think that was a big pickup for them. They needed a pass catcher. Obviously, he's had struggles in New York. Why not give him a 1-year prove-it deal? Now, I mean, and then also, too, you want to talk about overpaying. You know, Christian Kirk has never had an 1,000-yard season. I know he's played with DeAndre Hopkins. I know he had A.J. Green there last year. But D-Hop was out for most of the year. Like, you were supposed to be that number one guy. And then Zay Jones, same thing. He's never had 700 yards receiving in his entire career in a single season. He gets 3 years, $30 million. Otto, I think you and I should start lacing up and start playing receiver because maybe Trent Baalke will start signing us to outrageous deals. There's a reason why Jaguars fans showed up in clown faces to the last game was because this guy is a moron and he keeps proving it. And like you said, they made some good moves. Brandon Sheriff, you needed protection, right, for Trevor Lawrence? Great move. But then what are you doing, Baalke? You know, Doug Peterson's probably like, this guy's, I should be calling the shots here. But yeah, I would say a loser. I'm going to have to say the fan base at Jacksonville. I mean, you tried to get Baalke out, like I said, and here's Trent Baalke just doing Trent Baalke things. Now, obviously, Christian Kirk can go out and be, 2,000 yards and 80 touchdowns and say, hey, everyone, I'm worth every single penny. But is he really worth more than Devontae Adams? No, absolutely not.
Not a chance. And, like you said, not over 1,000-yard season. And part of that is because he's overshadowed by these guys. But let's be honest, those guys take the double coverage away from him. Now he's got to be the true number one. Do we really trust him to do that? Well, you certainly paid him like it, so he better. But I don't think he's that guy myself. To me, I wrote down two losers here. First of all, Julio Jones. What the heck is going on over there? He's already cut back on the free agent market. Now, he could be my winner in a week if he goes and gets the bag from some new team, right? And ends up with another Super Bowl contender. But right now, definitely a loser. Going to be on his third team in 3 years. And then the bigger loser. And let's be honest, these guys are just losers in general every year. It's the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, are you kidding me? You went out and paid a quarterback who we all knew wasn't worth it to be the third highest paid quarterback in the league. And then he just sat there this year and lost in the first round of the playoffs. And then you drafted a running back at number 4, paid him $90 million. He's not even the best guy on your team. He's got washed up knees. And then you got to cut Amari Cooper because of it. You can't sign Wilson. So, okay, we got Gallup, who's coming off of an injury, and we got CeeDee Lamb, who, you got to pay him in a couple of years again, right? And then you lose Randy Gregory because you put language in your contract that no one else in the NFL does. I mean, they're falling apart at the seams over there, and the season hasn't even started yet. A camera hasn't even hit them yet, and that's when we all know they really crumble. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, per usual, they're the losers.
And Otto, it is awesome to watch all this happen as Eagles fans. It is awesome. I bet Giants fans are going crazy. Even the boys in DC, the commies, the Commanders are probably going crazy. Probably not as crazy as we are because they got Carson Wentz down there. But still, everyone in the division, that's another winner. The NFC's division as a whole, because of how bad Dallas looks. And to throw even more wood on the fire, if I will, Otto, Jerry Jones has another lawsuit coming his way, if I'm not mistaken. So
that you're absolutely right. Yeah, let's
so
not forget about
it just
that.
keeps getting
Thank
worse.
you. No, you're absolutely right. They covered up with the first one with $4.2 million, and the NFL just washed it away. But now we're looking into the fact that he's been putting money aside in trust funds for a daughter that he was keeping quiet. So I agree. But, I don't want to pick on Dallas the whole time. And you brought up a great point with Carson Wentz being in the division. There is one winner in Dallas and one winner only. It's Trayvon Diggs. He's going to have 5 picks the first time he plays Carson, 6 the second time, and I'm sure there's incentives in his deal for a certain amount of interceptions. That guy just made money just by having Carson Wentz in his division.
Yeah, and no, but yeah, you're completely right about Dallas. I mean, what was it? You remember we saw? I remember you probably saw it too. Was the updates like, oh, Dallas resigns Randy Gregory? Like, okay, and then all of a sudden it's like, not even 3 or 4 seconds later, it's like, wait, no, he's actually going to Denver. I've never seen that happen. Where like one report came out, and then literally 3 or 4 seconds later, nope, he's going to this team for the exact same contract. And I mean, it's just I've never seen that before in my life. Do you like remember anything like that ever happening?
I mean, I remember Frank Gore switching on the Eagles years ago with Chip Kelly, but it wasn't as quick. To your point, it was, he was kind of coming there for a day or two. And then he kind of pulled the plug. But I can't remember anything that quick, where he just automatically pulled the plug on him after the news came out. And it was pretty funny to see Denver's Twitter page trolling him with the surprise, making fun of Dallas's announcement. So definitely think that Randy Gregory there and Jerry Jones' contract language made them look like losers in that situation.
Yeah, and like you said, you talked about the entire NFC as being a winner, with all the pass rushers and a lot of these big time free agents and quarterbacks going to the AFC. I mean, really, you look at the only loser of the NFC was really Dallas at this point. I mean, they're the only team who actually got way worse than anybody else. Like, you look at some really bad teams from last season, like, let's keep in our division, the New York Giants, who were supposed to have, higher hopes with Joe Judge. They had an awful season, but they are dramatically better now that all these AFC teams are loading up, and you can't blame them. I mean, just look at the QB talent. I mean, just look at one division. You talk about the AFC North. I mean, obviously we don't know what's going to have a Baker Mayfield, but you got Lamar Jackson as MVP winner. Joe Burrow, who won comeback player of the year this year, took his team to a Super Bowl. And then you got I'm blanking.
Did you forget about the best one in the division, Mitch Trubisky?
Yeah, Mitchell Trubisky. Yeah, it's the other one. I know. I mean, he's not like great, but still, you got those 3 young guys there. And obviously you might be seeing Deshaun Watson there, but then AFC West, I mean, how many times do we keep talking about they got Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Derek Carr, and Patrick Mahomes? I mean, I think Derek Carr is probably a top 10 quarterback, and he's arguably the worst quarterback in that division. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that. I would say he is the worst one in the division. And I'm not hating on Carr. I think, to your point, he's really pushing up against the top 10. But you've already started to dive into this. So we've actually addressed like almost all of these guys already on the show here today. But breaking down these trades that have gone on and how the AFC West is wound up being as stacked as they really are and things. So let's dive into a couple of these trades, address winner and loser, what you like about it, and maybe if there is, in your opinion, any effect on the draft. And we'll start off with the first one that hit last week, the Russell Wilson trade to the Broncos for multiple first-round picks and defensive lineman and Drew Lock
Noah
and Noah Fant,
was,
I believe. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that one, Mark?
Yeah, I was actually I think initially I thought Seattle walked out the big winner from this deal, because you look at it from Russell Wilson's perspective. He doesn't have the knees that he used to have. He's a little bit beat up, less mobile than he used to be. He's 33 years old, and they just got this huge contract and got a big haul for him. And I was like, And then you start thinking about from Denver's side, right? Like, hey, we have some really good pass catchers like Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, right? We have some good receivers there. Now, obviously, we lost Noah Fant in the trade, but we also have to be competitive with, every other team in that division who's light years ahead of us. So I think for me, I think both teams won. So I think Seattle got what they wanted. They got a huge haul. They need to rebuild. And I think Denver, they want to move in that direction. Obviously, how many times have we seen them mess up the quarterback position because John Elway's like, hey, you're 6'5", come play for the Denver Broncos. And now they're throwing that out the window. John Elway's like, hey, Russell Wilson, you're 5'10". Guess what? We're changing the narrative here. So yeah, I think both teams walked out winners, but would love to hear what you think.
Yeah, initially when I thought about it, I was like, oh my gosh, Denver got a steal. Should have been way more for Russell Wilson. And then I thought about it and I was like, well, I'm kind of biased because I'm not thinking about draft picks the way I should because the Eagles have 3 this year in the first. But I think Denver to go out and get Russell Wilson just alone. I don't really care what you paid for him. They have struggled so much to fill that quarterback position outside of Peyton Manning. And even dating back before that with Tim Tebow and Orton and Cutler and right. And then Drew Lock and Bridgewater. And I mean, you go up and down the list, right? They've struggled so much. So that's a team where we talk about, do you take a risk on a guy in the draft or get a proven commodity? They've tried the draft part and they've just failed over and over and over again. So they go with a proven commodity. And let's be honest, there's a shelf life in the NFL, right? As soon as Rodgers went back, they pulled the trigger on Wilson. Well, okay, the guy who came in, Nathaniel Hackett, the new head coach, was like, yeah, I know that if I don't win and if I don't have a good offense, then I'm out of here. So win for him, right? Win for Denver on that. But then Seattle as well. Let's not forget, they had sold so many picks with the Jamal Adams trade. It wasn't even funny. And now they're losers for doing that trade, but that was a while ago. They're winners for getting the picks back. And they're now in a position in this year's class where, they don't have to bundle these picks and move up. If they want a quarterback, which the rumor is that they do, and the rumor is Malik Willis, we will see, they can have it. I don't see anybody trading up ahead of them currently. I could be wrong. Maybe Pittsburgh comes up for Willis. But right now they're the first team in line to go get a quarterback. And so as much as we may not like this year's class, you get the pick of what you want. You knew if that's really where they're going to move, you knew that you had kind of the pick of the litter when you made this trade. And you lose a quarterback and you fill one in, and then you also have the first round of the next year and other picks to start rebuilding this team, which is the mode that they're in. And supposedly, I believe it was Shelby Hunt, the defensive tackle, is a phenomenal locker room guy. So as you're starting to rebuild this team, that's the type of people you want. Young guys, good character guys. And you got to fill out that quarterback position again. So Seattle put themselves in a good position to build. And, they're a team that doesn't need to win right away. Pete Carroll's proven at this point. And let's be honest, that division's pretty good. So you can buy yourself some time by saying, yeah, well, we play in the same division as Kyler, the Niners, and the Super Bowl champs, the Rams. The next one on here is Carson Wentz. Mark, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I just wanted to note quickly about Seattle was they're kind of an interesting spot too because, Pete Carroll's 70 years old. Is he really going to want to stay around for a rebuild? I guess he is. I mean, I will say, I give a lot of credit to that guy. That guy, is more active than I've seen any 70-year-old on the planet. So maybe he's like, you know what? I got 10 more years of coaching left. So, yeah, maybe I will just hang around for a rebuild. But, yeah, going to Carson, I don't know who's a winner or a loser in this trade. I honestly just don't know because I guess the Colts are the loser because they traded a first-round pick for him, and they only got back, a second and a third, and I think that second is conditional. So, I mean, I don't really – I guess, the Colts are the overall loser, but so are the Commanders, really. I mean, you really want to – I know they called every team in the league about their quarterback, and they landed on Carson, but apparently the rumor was they had a better trade offer to Seattle. for Wilson, but Wilson did not want to go there. And the only team that he really wanted to go to was Denver. And I mean, let's be honest, you really want to go to Washington, D.C. with all the problems with Daniel Snyder and all those problems down there? No, I would never want to go there. Denver seems a lot safer. You got Hackett, you got a lot of weapons there. DC really just got Terry McLaurin and like a pretty good defense. But I just don't know what to think. I mean, what's Carson going to do that's going to upgrade them over Heineke or even Ryan Fitzpatrick? I think he's got a stronger arm than both those guys, but I mean, I just don't know. I'm just I don't really have any. I'm at a loss for words. When this thing came out, Schefter puts out the tweet, and you're just like laughing to yourself. You're like, why would you do this?
Hands down, the winner of this trade is the Indianapolis Colts. To me, and now I understand where you're coming from about them being a loser because of what they gave up for him last year. But I'm thinking specifically about just this trade, right? So taking out that, they get his salary off the books. They become the team with the most salary cap in the entire NFL for this offseason. Huge on that aspect, right? Let's be honest. A ragdoll or a monkey could play quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, and they're still going to win 9 games because Jonathan Taylor just needs to get the ball. When they went on that run, Jonathan Taylor was averaging like 150 yards a game. Nobody cared what Carson Wentz did. Just don't turn it over, buddy. Okay? Hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor and get the heck out of the way, right? The Commanders, they put together a list of 40 quarterbacks on every NFL team. And they called and they called and they called and they called and they called, right? It's like going through your Facebook and being like, okay, wow, girl, look at that girl and look at that girl and look at that girl. And now I'm going to rank them 1 through 40 and I'm going to call and I'm going to call and I'm going to call and I'm going to call. And then I'm going to get to like, I don't know, number 32, right? And I'm going to be like, hey, can I pay for $100 dinner? Right? That's his salary for the year. Can I pay for $100 dinner with you and take you out on a date, even though you were 32 on my list, right? Like, what are you doing? Oh, and give up a couple draft picks? No way. No way. Terrible, terrible move. And the other thing to me is like, they're a similar team set up as the Indianapolis Colts where it's run the ball, play good defense. We don't need flashy offense, right? Taylor Heineke fit that system, and other quarterbacks would fit it better than Carson because they take care of the football. Run the ball effectively with Antonio Gibson. Every now and then stretch the field with McLaurin, and then hit your tight ends and everybody else underneath, right? But we're not going to pass that much. We're going to dominate the clock. We're going to allow Chase Young and the defense to dominate. Don't turn it over, right? Carson Wentz is a turnover machine. He doesn't fit the system. He's going to be a negative for that team. And I mean, I could be wrong. We'll see. Obviously, I'm biased being an Eagles fan and watching that guy fall apart here in Philadelphia. But to me, it just seemed like a desperate trade overall. And it really doesn't make sense to me. Although I'm not going to lie to you. I was so happy to see the trade happen. And I cannot wait until the Commanders come to town next year.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. And then another quick point on that too was, Carson in a sense kind of reminds me of Jay Cutler. I think Jay Cutler's a way better quarterback. But if you remember how many offensive coordinators the Bears put in to be like, hey, I can work with this guy. I can work with this guy. I can work with this. This is kind of like Carson Wentz, right? He comes to Philly. It's like, okay, we're going to bring in, Frank Reich, John DeFilippo. All of a sudden, DeFilippo leaves because Wentz doesn't like him. Then they bring in more guys to help him out. You know what I mean? It's like, I can work with this guy. I can work with this guy. Trade him to Indianapolis. They go, bring him back. Nick Sirianni's there with them. Frank Reich's the head coach. Okay, now they bring in a new offensive coordinator. And now you go to Washington, and, Washington's like, staff are like, hey, we can work with them. We can work with them. We can work with them. And, it's just amazing to think that he has that many suitors. Like, still, like, all those coaches still be like, I can work with them. I can work with them. And just kind of remind me of Jay Cutler in that sense. Because remember, the Bears fired Lovie Smith. They brought in Mark Trestman from the Canadian Football League. He's like, I can work with Cutler. And then they had Adam Gase who worked with them. It's just like a mess with all these coaches who think they can work with these players. And yeah, I think you're right. I don't know who, like you said, for Washington, even called Kansas City and said, "Hey, Patrick Mahomes available?" And Brett Feast was like, no. Like really, like what? Even if you were to get Patrick Mahomes, you have to give up literally your entire franchise, literally every single player and every single one of your draft picks for the next like 5 years to get him. Like what are you thinking?
I agree. I totally agree. I think it was a desperate move out of the Commanders there. But moving forward, continuing to hit on some free agency stuff, and potentially trades here as well. So we already noted who some of the winners were, what some of the top positions were. We've had some moves so far. Mark, who do you think are some of the top free agents that are left available? And then if you want to, throw in any potential guys that are also looking at the trade market, like I don't know, Deshaun Watson or Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I think those are two interesting players, but I'll start with my top free agents who are still left. I think Teron Armstead, I think overall is still like the top overall free agent. I think he's still at an age where he's right in the middle of his prime. I think a team, can really use his services. I don't think he's going to go back to New Orleans. They have a lot of cap situation, and if they do bring on Deshaun Watson, that's a whole other contract that they bring on. So I don't think he's going back there, but I think any team could pick him up. Number 2 for me, Allen Robinson. I still think he's the top prize in free agency right now. I mean, we talked about some of the other receivers getting paid. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. And then I got some other names here. Odell's a free agent. I think he goes back to LA. Trent Brown, I think is an interesting one. Stefan Gilmore, Bobby Wagner, Tyrann Mathieu, Akeem Hicks, and Rob Gronkowski are pretty much my top guys left. And, there are still some interesting names out there outside of that, but I think for me, those are my top guys.
Yeah, geez, I'm crow. You just about named them all for me. Yeah, I mean, I agree. A-Rob to me is the top free agent receiver. One guy that I do think is an interesting one, I think he's a great commodity in the slot, and his veteran presence never been a locker room issue, is Jarvis Landry that's hit the market. So that's a really interesting one to me there. I do think it'll be interesting to see where the Honey Badger lands. Somebody's going to give that guy the bag, and he deserves it. Absolutely agree with you there. Wagner's a great pickup there. Be interesting to see for me how long the contract goes with Bobby Wagner, just with where he is. And then, yeah, the other one that I had on there was Gilmore. I didn't even realize Stefan Gilmore was a free agent until today. This is a guy who was the best cornerback, the best player in football like 3 years ago. He's still got plenty left in the tank. If you're a player away, why not go get him? The longer he sits, the less money he's going to get, obviously, on the market. So he's a really, really interesting one to me to watch is Stefan Gilmore there. But obviously the big watch is on the quarterback, and I guess now the quarterbacks that we've discussed. To me, Deshaun Watson, it's going to be interesting. I think he ends up with one of the NFC teams. I just don't understand if you're the Browns with why you would make that move. But out of the 3 teams, I know he really liked Carolina, but I heard today that he was in contacts with some of those free agent receivers. I think it was Robinson and Landry about potentially going back to Atlanta, which is where he's from. So that would be interesting. And then that obviously opens the door for a conversation about where does Matt Ryan go? So I think the domino here of Deshaun Watson is going to set a lot of other dominoes in place with other free agents, obviously, and then other quarterbacks. So that's going to be an interesting one. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was talking to one of my buddies who's a Browns fan. I was thinking, if they really want to move on from Baker and they want to get Watson, you probably think Houston doesn't want to bring on a guy like Baker. A guy who's got 1 year left on his deal. They didn't draft him. Obviously be, a young guy you might want to take a shot on, but they probably want to roll with Davis Mills maybe one more year and then draft, a Bryce Young next year. So I was saying to him, like, 3-team trade. And now you bring up Atlanta. I think there's still that possibility for a 3-team trade. So here's the one trade I thought of, right? Cleveland trades Baker Mayfield. He goes to Indianapolis. Houston trades Watson. Watson goes to Cleveland. Houston gets what they want. They get a bunch of picks. So I don't know how it would probably work out, but let's just say, Cleveland gives up 2 first-round picks that go to Houston. And then, Indianapolis gives up a first-round pick in the future to get Mayfield, and somehow that ends up in Houston. That's one. And then you look at the other side. Now we're bringing Atlanta. That opens up another 3-team trade. Matt Ryan goes to Indianapolis. Deshaun Watson goes to Atlanta, and Houston once again gets picked. So I think there's interesting scenarios there, like you said, setting the domino. Because obviously, I think Indianapolis, Chris Ballard, he's watching every single move right now because he knows, all right, I need somebody back here, and we're in win now mode. I don't think a rookie's going to bring us to Super Bowl year one. Like, we're Super Bowl contenders like right this second.
I agree. I think that's the one that I'm watching the closest with the quarterback position. To me, it was the Steelers at one point until they got Trubisky. And I don't think they're done by all means. I think they get somebody in the draft. But the Colts, to me, they don't have a first-round pick, right? So, like, they can't get one of these top guys, or maybe they can in the second round, but it's not the guy that they may pick, right? It may be the second or third guy on their board. So to me, yeah, you got to be involved in absolutely everything. And to your point, they're in win now mode. Yes, they're in the AFC, who we just said it's going to be so tough to run through the AFC. But they're built for playoff football. Defense, running back, and their division is not that hard to get out of. Houston stinks. Jacksonville's on a rebuild, paying Christian Kirk $84 million for the 10th time. And then Tennessee, Tennessee let go of Julio today. Derrick Henry had an injury last year. It's hard to stay healthy as a running back. And then Ryan Tannehill threw 3 picks in a playoff game last year. So, who's to say they're going to be back where they were? So, yeah, to me, the most interesting QB situation to watch right now is the Colts. Do they go with a free agent? Is it Marcus Mariota, somebody else? Do they try to trade for whoever is not involved with Watson? My only thing about a 3-team trade involving Houston and Watson is, like, they're in the same division. So if you think about this, right, I don't necessarily, if you're Houston, right, and you're making this trade and all you're getting back is picks, and let's say it's to Atlanta and Matt Ryan gets flipped to Indy, I'm not caring that much if I'm Houston, because Matt Ryan's going to be long gone by the time Houston rebuilds this thing and is in contention again. But, if Baker Mayfield scares him at all, he's still young. Right. So maybe you don't want that in your division. Just saying that could play a role when I think about the trade. But I do agree. I think this trade's coming with Deshaun Watson. A 3-team trade wouldn't surprise me. I like that. I like the idea. And it'll be interesting to see there.
Yeah, and that's a great point you brought up. I was gonna say that's a great point you brought up about the division, because Houston denied Indianapolis. They denied a meeting with them because Indianapolis was like, hey, if Watson's available, because, we're kind of like one piece away, hey, Deshaun can make us Super Bowl contenders. And they would not let the Colts take a meeting with Watson. So that's an interesting point too. And like you said, yeah, maybe Atlanta could work out a 3-team trade. But I think, like, you're right. Maybe if a 3-team trade's too much, maybe it's just separate transactions. Baker Mayfield gets traded to Houston, and then Houston flips them to Indy, which I know in division, but still, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I think that's probably what everyone has on their mind. And I think you alluded to earlier, if whoever gets Watson, what's his suspension? What's his situation going to go look like into next season? Because let's say a team like Cleveland or Atlanta goes all in for him and he's suspended 8 games half the year. It's like, okay, who's going to play those 8 games for you at quarterback?
Yeah, I agree. That's something to watch. And it's something where, to me, when you're making that trade, it has to be a long-term decision. Obviously, you're going to leverage your future in your draft picks. So you need to think about that, and then you're not going to have him for this year. So as far as I'm concerned, you chalk this year up as kind of a loss, which for those teams that are right in contention, maybe that backs them off, given that he may miss 8 games or whatever the commissioner comes down with. Moving back though to the draft, we have our 2 segments that we do every week at the end here, and that is our sleeper of the week and our draft crush of the week. So let's kick it off with a sleeper. And Mark, who is your sleeper this week?
It's funny. I'm gonna keep rolling. I know I brought up Slade Bowles and Alabama receiver, but I'm gonna bring up another one, John Metchi III. And I don't know why this guy keeps slipping on draft boards. I've seen him going day 1 early in the year, day 2. Now he's looking like a day 3 pick. Like, I mean, are you kidding me? I know the guy's got injured last year, but this guy has all the talent of a top wide receiver. I mean, you watch him play at Alabama, you're like, that's Julio Jones from like 10 years ago. The kid is absolutely unbelievable. Was one of their most reliable pass catchers for Bryce Young and Mac Jones. I really like John Metchi, and I just don't know why he's slipping to like the 4th or 5th round. If the team can get him in that part of the draft, I mean, you're looking like at a home run like Amon-Ra St. Brown, like the Lions had last year. So I don't think he's a sleeper, but I think to everyone else, he's a sleeper. So I'll say John Metchi.
Yeah, Metchi to me is one. I agree. I have a higher grade on him than where I see him falling on boards right now. And I don't know if it's because of the injury. Don't know if it's because they project him as a slot receiver at that size. And, we've seen great slot receivers even in these last couple of years with more from Ole Miss, more from Purdue, all these different guys, and slot receivers tend to just fall down the board a little bit. So not sure if that's him, but I love John Metchi. My sleeper is Zion McCollum, cornerback from Sam Houston State. Knock on him, he did play 5 years, so a little bit older. However, ideal size to play outside corner, and you turn on the tape on this guy and the athleticism just jumps for you. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, had 3 picks this last year. Like I said, he's going to line up as an outside corner, which it is another reason why I like him in this year's draft, because we have some undersized corners that are kind of up there at the top. And you think, like McDuffie, for example. So this guy's going to be able to play the outside, which is more of the premier position when you think about the corner. 6'2", he ran a 4.33 at the combine. I mean, the guy can fly. He plays really good in zone, but he's mainly a press man corner, and I love it. He gets up in your face. He gets his hands on you, lets you make your first move, and then blows you off your route with those hands. So I love that. He's patient at the point of attack. And he's really, really comfortable in his back pedal. He doesn't flip his hips too early, even on those long developing routes, like you think about an 11-yard curl, things like that. He's comfortable in that back pedal, and he knows he's got that 4.33 speed, so that once you commit to your route, he can flip his hips maybe a half second late, and he's still going to be able to stick with you with that speed. I just really like that. And the hips are fluent as well. So he's a guy, again, from a smaller name school that's probably the biggest reason why he's a sleeper. But when you think about all the attributes here, could be a second round pick, and he's going to be a steal for somebody playing on the outside at the next level.
I love it. Sam Houston State. I like that.
Absolutely. And then our draft crush. Mark, who you got for your draft crush this week?
Yeah, I think this guy doesn't get too much attention, but I'm going to go with Devontae Wyatt at the University of Georgia. Obviously, his counterpart right next to him, Jordan Davis, has gotten all the media attention all season, and especially at the combine. But Devontae Wyatt has been there right with him the entire year. He's been an offensive line wrecker, very good at stopping the run, played an absolutely huge role in their defense like everyone else, but had a great combine as well. And I think this guy's just been undershadowed. I mean, he probably won't go in the first round, but he'll be a solid second day 2 pick. So yeah, I definitely like him a lot. I think a lot of people are undervaluing him just because of how, he was playing next to Jordan Davis, who I really like, but I think he's a little bit overhyped. There's some times where Jordan Davis has gotten exposed, but Wyatt, he's a very good player. So I'll say him as my crush.
Yeah, I don't think Jordan Davis is overhyped. But I do think that when you look at the body build for these two guys, the body build of Devontae Wyatt has been more successful at the NFL level than the Jordan Davis body build, which is more of kind of a true nose tackle on a 3-4 front. Now, I know that Davis has athleticism that most people that size don't. So I do think that he will be an outlier for someone of that size at the next level. But I like Wyatt's build. I like the production in college. Really like him as a second round pick. My draft crush this week is another guy who was kind of looked over due to another player on his team at the same position. My draft crush is Chris Olave. Fantastic route runner. Being a Penn State fan and watching this kid, it drives you nuts. You know he's going to kill you, and he does it every single time. 6'1", 190 pounds. 65 catches, 936 yards, and 3 touchdowns in 2021. Like I said, phenomenal route runner, fluid in and out of his breaks, doesn't have to get too low to slow down. He's just fluid. Phenomenal burst. I cannot say enough about the burst. When you think about who was receiver for Ohio State, we think about Garrett Wilson, we think about Chris Olave, Jackson Smith and Jigba, even Marvin Harrison Jr., who played in the bowl game due to injuries. All these guys fly. And when you turn on the tape and you watch a ball get snapped, the first guy off the ball every single time is Chris Olave. The burst on this guy is phenomenal. It's fluent. He's okay in the blocking game. Not great, obviously, with the size. He's a little bit undersized, so that makes sense. But he's unguardable one-on-one. He has that Justin Jefferson stutter and go move with his burst, where he kind of doesn't run off the bat and kind of does the head shake and isn't moving, and then he just bang, he goes into his route. I love that, right? And with his burst, it is unguardable. You're gonna see when you turn on the tape of this guy, CJ Stroud look over and be like, oh, that's press coverage on Olave and there's no safety. That's where I'm going, right? The 11-yard curl specifically is my favorite route that he runs. He gets to that 7-yard mark. The corner's like, oh no, this is 4.3 speed. I got to flip my hips to stick with this guy. Corner flips his hips and Olave breaks it off at 11 and comes back. Easiest catches you'll see. The only knock that I really have on him is that he's not a true hands catcher. You typically don't see that with the deep threats, but I still really like his work around the sideline with his feet. He doesn't have too many drops on tape. Just not, the best hands catcher. And I did have a comp for him as well. My comp to him is Deshaun Jackson with the speed and the fluidness in and out of his routes. So Chris Olave would be the draft crush for me this week.
Yeah, he's a beast. I really like Chris Olave. I know watching him as a Penn State fan was terrible, but I do have a lot of respect for him because I thought he was going to come out last season when Justin Fields came out. I didn't think he was going to, come back to Ohio State with a new quarterback and kind of a new system, but he did. And I give him a lot of respect for that. And he had another unbelievable season for them. But yeah, no, his burst is incredible. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard Gus Johnson say Chris Olave. It's just unbelievable how good that guy was in the Big Ten. I mean, we always think of the Big Ten as, offensive line, running the football on offense. And then you watch Ohio State and it's just a track meet with their wide receivers. And, like you said, obviously you have Garrett Wilson on the other side. You got Smith, Njinka, and then you have Marvin Harrison Jr. It's like, man, where they keep getting these receivers, they're just growing on trees for them. But yeah, I think Olave, he's going to be easy top 20 pick. And he is going to make a big difference, I think, for an NFL team who gets him. I think, obviously we saw Jacksonville spend a little bit of money, but a team like Jacksonville or a team like the Jets who have young quarterbacks, man, that can be an electric weapon to, develop chemistry with.
Yeah, no, I agree. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. I don't think he makes it out of the first round, to your point. So to end the show today, we thought we'd have a little bit more fun as we've been doing on recent shows with this segment. So I'm sure everybody saw that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman got overpaid, frankly, and sent over to Monday Night Football, which leaves a hole at Fox in terms of their number one broadcasting crew. And what makes it even more interesting is the fact that Fox has the Super Bowl this year. So we thought it would be fun to put together a broadcasting crew. Can be an actual crew that currently works games, or just really anyone you want. Who would be your ideal broadcasting crew for Fox, for Fox's number one slate each week?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I can't believe, because I saw the reports that were like, oh, Aikman's going to ESPN. It's like, oh, okay, that's like kind of interesting. Who they can put with Joe Buck? And then it's like, it comes out this week. Oh, Joe Buck's joining him. It's like, boy, trying to form like a super team at ESPN. Like, what is this? Announcer free agency. Hey, Al Michaels is out there. He said on the Super Bowl, I could be out there. So I'll say Al Michaels. I'll put him there. And then who would I put him next to? If this guy retires, I think it would be so funny. But Rob Gronkowski and Al Michaels, I think, would be hilarious together.
I like that one. I like Gronk. I like that one. That is a good one. To me, I will go first off with somebody who has done some games before and was phenomenal doing them. Pat McAfee.
Yes.
Get him off the Pat McAfee podcast. Get him back out there. Evan McPherson had a year, and kickers and punters need love. Get Pat McAfee out there. And then the other one that as I thought about this, and I said, okay, Pat McAfee is going to bring the energy. So who's going to calm down a little bit? Well, it's going to be the guy who's only there so he doesn't get fined. We're going to bust Marshawn Lynch out. We're going to put Marshawn with Pat McAfee. I mean, you want to talk about under-respected positions, punter, kicker, and running back in today's NFL. These guys are going to love it, right? And I cannot think of a funnier group than Marshawn unicycling through the streets in foreign countries and Pat McAfee calling WWE matches. I mean, put them together. It's gold. Let them call the Super Bowl, and Fox. I would turn on Fox games even if the Eagles weren't playing just to listen to those two broadcasts.
And you know what? Fox also has the World Series too. Put them on the World Series broadcast. That would be amazing. And then
absolutely.
Marshawn too. He's like kind of unfiltered. Oh my God, he would be so funny. He'd be like, "Damn, Pat." I could just see it.
I'm all about it. Two would be unfiltered, and as we think about it nowadays, let's be honest. Unfiltered gets you viewership. Fox wants viewership back after ESPN stole their guys. Go out and put them together.
And then who is the guy on Instagram who do those fake play-by-plays? Why not give that guy a shot?
Bob Menery.
Yeah, Bob Menery. I know he's doing the full send stuff. He's with the Nuff Boys, but hey, I'm sure he could do this on the side. He only needed
That is true. Weeks. Maybe he could be the on-field guy, right?
Oh, like that would be so funny.
Back a couple of years ago there. I would love to see him be in that thing that sat up in front of the fans and have the fans try to heckle him and yell at him. Something tells me Menery would put them back in their seats.
Yeah, what was that? They had ESPN had Booger McFarland, but it is interesting because if I started to read into it a little bit. So out of all the networks that broadcast NFL games, you have CBS, NBC, Fox, ESPN. ESPN's the only network that is not in the Super Bowl cycle. So Disney thinks it's because, it's probably because of a broadcast team. I think they had Steve Levy, Lou Riddick, and they had another guy in there. I mean, I thought they were a fine crew, but I mean, they weren't like exciting. I mean, I don't think Buck and Aikman are that great, but sure enough, here we are. But yeah, I think this is a move where Disney's like, hey, look, we want to make more money. How do we make more money? We need a Super Bowl. So I think this is a way for them to be like, hey, like we need a good broadcast crew. And like you said, Fox in a predicament now. It's like, okay, like we just lost our top guys. Do we promote Gus Johnson, who's been a great college announcer, which I think he's amazing because I think he's got the most amazing voice and he gets into every single game like it's his last. But yeah, it is really interesting. So, because I don't know about you, Otto, I think broadcaster free agency has been more exciting than NFL free agency at this point.
Free agency maybe, but definitely not the trading. Not the trades so far. I think the trades have got broadcaster free agency. But with that wraps us up for this week on the Green Room podcast. Next week, we will be going over the defensive tackle and offensive tackle positions, another week closer to the draft. And we will be pretty much wrapped up with the first wave of free agency. So we will see everyone next week.
Yeah, it's going to be real exciting. Stay tuned. We're going to have some good talk. And yeah, tackles. We got to show these big boys respect.